On a warm summer day in the Lumbridge market, a new player is ready to start their PVM adventure.
Wow, I finally got all 80 combat skills. Only level 80s? Get good, kid.
Don't listen to him, man. Congrats, brother. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I think I'm ready to get into PVM now.
Heck yeah, man. Make that money.
But I got a slight problem.
What's wrong, man?
I really don't understand these ability thingies.
Well, what combat style are you trying to learn?
I think I'd really enjoy learning the magic style.
Well, that's awesome, man. I have the perfect PVM video for you.
Woohoo! Let's go!
Yo, what is up, YouTube? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If you're clicking on this video, it's because you want to know everything there is about magic abilities. So we're going to go ahead and call this the ultimate ability breakdown for magic. And by the end of this, you guys are going to know what a basic, a threshold, and an ultimate ability is within the magic category and how you should prioritize them. Before we get into this video, I have to give a quick shout out to the boy BSG Calculate for commenting on our last video. If you want a chance to get shouted out in the next video, make sure you guys comment down below one of your current RuneScape goals, whether that's PVM or skilling. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this ultimate ability breakdown guide. Before we get into the video, a quick disclaimer for you guys. I do not know everything about PVM, just a decent understanding of it. With this being said, most likely there will be an ability or two that I don't explain right or mess up. If that happens, take advantage of the comments section. Let me know what I could have explained better or what I even explained well. With the disclaimer out of the way, let's get into this video. Starting it off, let's cover a few keywords that we may run into while covering these abilities. The first one is Area of Effect, or AoE. This is basically any ability that can do damage to multiple nearby targets. These abilities include Chain, Greater Chain, Dragon Breath, Corruption Blast, Detonate, and Tsunami. Next we have Combat Attacks, also known as Channeled Abilities. These are abilities described as bleeds or burns, and these abilities have effects that last longer than one global cooldown, but they can be cancelled by you. A few examples of channeled abilities would be Concentrated Blast, Graded Concentrator Blast, Asphyxiate, Detonate, and Smoke Tendrils. For our final keyword, we have Damage Over Time, or DOT. These abilities are also described as bleeds and burns, and they also last longer than one global cooldown. The only difference is these cannot be cancelled by the player. A few examples of some damage over time abilities would be Combust and Concentrated Blast. Next, I wanted to touch on special attacks. These can only be used with specific weapons. The attack and the adrenaline cost will vary depending on the weapon used. On screen, I have a few examples of some weapons that you'd put into an EOF or just use to get a benefit out of their special attack. We have the SGB, the Gothic Staff, the Statius Warhammer, and the Fractured Staff of Armadil. The last thing I want to touch on before we get into the basic thresholds and ultimate abilities is auto attacks. Auto attacks do damage based off the weapon used with no special effects. They typically generate 1 to 3% adrenaline for each auto attack, depending on the combat style and handiness of the weapon used. Now that we've covered a few key words and some things to be aware of when it comes to RuneScape's combat system, let's talk about Magic's basic abilities. Basics gain you 8% adrenaline each time used and usually come with increased damage, a special effect, or both. Now you can also get 9% adrenaline with your basic abilities if you have Furia the Small Relic unlocked and equipped. Down below I have every single basic ability for the Magic combat style, and we're going to go ahead and dive into each one specifically, what they do, how you'd use them, and how you should prioritize them when it comes to trying to build a rotation. Okay, for our first Magic basic ability, we have Golden Touch. Feel the magic of gold at your fingertips. High alchemizes all drops not exceeding the loot beam value, and this will last 60 seconds. Revolution will not trigger the ability, and you generate no adrenaline from this basic ability. This is unlocked by the Golden Touch Codex, and this will require you to have 2,000 vital sparks to basically create the codex. Adrenaline cost to activate this basic is 0%, and again, no adrenaline will be gained or lost. Golden Touch is a low priority, and honestly, you wouldn't ever use this in a rotation. It's mainly just if you're trying to get a few cheeky high alks off of some loot beams while you're doing Slayer. The next basic ability, we have Surge, Teleport Forward. Instantly teleport 10 tiles in a straight line ahead. If you do have the double Surge codex unlocked, it will give you 2 charges to your Surge. The adrenaline cost is 0%, and you will gain a percent adrenaline when activating this basic. Surge is a low priority basic ability, however it is super good in specific situations where you need to get around the map faster or get out of getting smacked by an attack. For our next basic ability, we have Chain or Greater Chain, a magical spell that chains between nearby enemies. In green text, I have what the Greater adds to the original basic ability, but with Chain, you will do 20% to 100% ability damage, and you will damage up to 2 additional targets. If you do have Greater Chain unlocked, the next ability on the primary target is also cast on additional targets with a 50% damage reduction. This ability will last 6 seconds. You can unlock the greater version of Chain through the Greater Chain Codex, which is dropped by Raksha, or you can buy it off the Grand Exchange. The adrenaline cost is 0% to activate this basic ability, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating. Chain or Greater Chain is typically a low priority basic ability, and it's only really utilized when you're trying to get the AoE effect out of it and damage multiple targets. Greater Chain combined with Chroming 4 will allow you to damage up to a total of 6 targets, and again, when you're trying to get the benefit of the AoE, can be utilized and be strong in that situation. For our next basic ability, we have Shock, Scream at the target. This will do 20% to 100% ability damage and stun target for 1.2 seconds. You will also knock them back 1 tile if they are a smaller target. Shock is unlocked by the Scare Tactics book, which can be dropped by Unspeakable Horrors. The adrenaline cost is 0% like most basic abilities, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Shock is typically a low priority basic ability, however if you're in a situation where you need a stun and all your other stuns are on cooldown, Shock is a super good option. Our next basic ability is Impact. Blast the target with a blast of magical energy. This will do 20% to 100% ability damage, and you will stun and bind the target for 1.2 seconds. The adrenaline cost, like most basic abilities, is 0%, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. It's good to note that Impact and Shock do share the same cooldown, so unfortunately instead of getting 2 stuns, you will have 1 stun. Impact is typically a low priority basic ability due to the damage output, but like Shock, if you're in a situation where you really need to stun or bind the target, Impact may come in clutch for you. For our next basic ability, we have the Magma Tempest, and this is going to be our first 2-handed only ability. Create a storm of fire and earth. This will create a 5x5 damaging area centered at the target. 5% to 19% ability damage every 1.2 seconds over 9.6 seconds. You'll be able to damage up to 25 targets in the area, and this ability cannot critical strike. Magma Tempest is unlocked by the Magma Tempest Codex, which is a drop from Zuck, or you could buy it off the Grand Exchange for a hefty price. Like most basic abilities, the adrenaline cost is 0%, and when activating this basic, you will gain 8% adrenaline. Magma Tempest I see as a mid-priority basic ability due to the large amount of damage you can do within the AoE effect of Magma Tempest. It's super good situational, especially if you're at Fight Caves, Zuck, or need to kill a lot of mobs quickly. Magma Tempest could really come in clutch and speed up that process for you. For our next basic ability, we have Combust, Explode the target, causing them to burn. While the target's burning, you're going to be dealing 20% to 37% ability damage every 1.2 seconds over 6 seconds. This is our first damage over time ability, and if the target is moving, you will deal 2 times the damage to that target. Like most basic abilities, the adrenaline cost is 0%, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Combust is a mid-priority basic ability for me. However, combined with a few abilities that we're going to touch on later, I could definitely put Combust in the high priority bracket. For our next ability, we have Wreck or Wreck and Ruin. This is a powerful attack. Again, down below in green text is what Wreck and Ruin does, and then in yellow text is what regular Wreck does. With regular Wreck, you'll be dealing 18% to 94% ability damage. However, if the target is bound or stunned, you will deal 37% to 188% ability damage. Now, if you have Wreck and Ruin able to be activated, you'll be able to do 60% to 300% ability damage. And if they are bound or stunned, you'll deal 120% to 360% ability damage. And again, this is a basic ability. And on top of all that, it also will extend the duration of the next Combust cast by 2 hits. And this has to be done within about 10 seconds of Wreck and Ruin being activated. Wreck and Ruined is unlocked by the Extenuate spell, and you have to build up 12 blood thigh stacks. Like most basic abilities, the adrenaline cost is 0%, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Now, Wreck itself is definitely a low priority basic ability, but if you do have the option to use Wreck and Ruin, it definitely puts it in a high priority. Not only are you going to be doing threshold damage with a basic ability, you'll be able to extend your duration of your next Combust, even allowing another basic to do even more damage, and that's just going to increase your DPS output over the long haul. For our next basic ability, we have Corruption Blast. Blast the target with corruption, causing them to take damage over time. With this ability, you'll be dealing 33% to 100% ability damage every 1.2 seconds over the span of 6 seconds. This is a damage over time ability, and every 1.2 seconds damage will also spread to nearby enemies, and it is reduced by 20% of the initial damage. It's good to note damage will only spread to active opponents in PvP, so you don't have to worry about stalling if someone attacks you and you do use Corruption Blast. Corruption Blast is unlocked by the Mazcab ability codex, which is acquired from raids or buying it off the Grand Exchange. Like most basic abilities, the adrenaline cost is 0%, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Corruption Blast is definitely a high priority basic ability for me due to the large amount of damage that you can put out within 6 seconds. This is definitely an ability I try to put at the beginning of my rotations. However, there are circumstances where you wouldn't use Corruption Blast over a specific ability, as if you were using Greater Concentrated Blast, you wouldn't want to waste that effect that you get from that ability on a bleed such as Corruption Blast or Combust. For our next basic ability, we have Dragon Breath. Breathe, a magical cloud of fire. And when you let this fire from your chest, you'll be dealing 37% to 188% ability damage. You can also damage up to 4 enemies between you and the primary target and adjacent to the primary target, basically saying you can damage 4 people around the person you're attacking. This is an area of effect ability, and this will also disable protection prayers in PvP. So if you're ever in a situation you're using magic in the wilderness and someone tries to run up on you, now you know how to put their prayers down, kind of get them a little scared. Use Dragon Breath and maybe make a quick getaway. Like most basic abilities, the adrenaline cost is 0% to activate this ability, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating it. Dragon Breath is definitely a high priority basic ability due to the large amount of damage that you can put out in a single game tick. For our next basic ability, we have Sonic Wave, and this is going to be our second two-hand only ability, a focus blast of magic that pummels the target. Hey, and when you pummel this target, you're going to be dealing 31% to 157% ability damage. On top of that, you gain 6% accuracy on your next ability activated. The adrenaline cost, like most basic abilities, is 0% to activate Sonic Wave, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Sonic Wave is definitely a high priority basic ability, and typically when you're using a two-handed weapon, this will be the first ability that you use in your rotation. For our final basic ability, we have Concentrated Blast or Greater Concentrated Blast, and this is going to be our first and only dual wield only ability. In green text is what Greater Concentrated Blast does, and in the yellow is what the regular Concentrated Blast will do. Blast the target with beams of concentrated energy. When you blast the target, you'll be dealing 48% to 246% total ability damage over 2.4 seconds in 3 hits. Now, if you have the Greater Concentrated Blast version unlocked, you'll be dealing 53% to 267% total ability damage over 1.8 seconds in 3 hits. This is our first channeled attack. And for every hit channeled, you will gain 5% critical strike chance on your next ability. Greater Concentrated Blast is unlocked by the Greater Concentrated Blast Codex, which is dropped from Care Pack or can be bought off the Grand Exchange. Like all other basic abilities, the adrenaline cost to activate this is 0%, and you will gain 8% adrenaline when activating this ability. Concentrated Blast or Greater Concentrated Blast is definitely a high priority when it comes to basic abilities, and is the first basic that you activate when it comes to your dual wield rotations. Now that we have covered all the basics, let's go ahead and jump into the threshold abilities. What's a threshold? Well, thresholds require 50% adrenaline to activate, and they will drain 15% of your adrenaline when you use them. They generally deal more damage than basic abilities and typically have stronger effects. Down below, I have 6 of the threshold abilities that are tied to the magic combat style, and just like how we did with the basic abilities, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and talk about what these threshold abilities do, how they work, and how you should prioritize them when it comes to DPS rotations. For our first threshold ability, we have Horror Terrify the target, and when you terrify these poor innocent souls, you're going to be doing 40% to 200% ability damage. You'll also stun the target for 3.6 seconds, and if they're a smaller target, you'll knock them back 1 tile. Horror is basically the upgraded version of Shock. Horror is unlocked by the Scare Tactics book, which is dropped by Unspeakable Horrors. Like most thresholds, the adrenaline cost will be 50% to activate this ability and will take 15% adrenaline from you. Horror is typically a low priority threshold ability due to the amount of damage that it puts out, but if you're in a situation where you need a stun similar to Shock or Impact, Horror is a great option. For our next threshold ability, we have Deep Impact. Blast the target with a comet of strong magical energy, and when you hit them with this comet, you'll be dealing 40% to 200% ability damage. You will also stun and bind the target for 3.6 seconds. Deep Impact, similar to Horror, is the upgraded version of Impact. Like most threshold abilities, it will cost 50% adrenaline to activate this ability and will take 15% adrenaline from you. Deep Impact is a mid-priority threshold ability for me, and the main reason is it's just slightly better than Horror due to the fact that you not only stun them, but you can bind the target as well. For our next threshold ability, we have Detonate. Summon an explosive ball of energy over the target or yourself. Charge 20% to 70% ability damage every 0.6 seconds over 3 seconds. And this will give you a maximum damage output to 100% to 350%. When you click Detonate again, you will detonate the ball. If the ball has been charged for at least 3 seconds, deal all the charged damage to the primary target, and you can damage up to 25 enemies that are adjacent to that primary target. If you activated Detonate a little early, then just deal all charged damage to the primary target and up to 9 enemies that are adjacent to that target, with a slight reduction of the blast radius. Detonate is an area of effect ability, and Revolution will not trigger this ability. Like most threshold abilities, the adrenaline cost is 50% to activate this ability, and you will lose 15% of your adrenaline. Detonate is a mid-priority threshold ability for me, but it's kind of on the border of high priority due to the fact of the large amount of damage that you can do within 3 seconds. However, if you do have Blast Diffusion boots, it cuts that time in half, and you're able to get the Detonate full effect off a lot easier. For our next threshold ability, we have Smoke Tendrils. Tendrils of smoke whip at your target's feet, and when you hit them in the feet, you're going to be dealing 115% to 575% total ability damage to the target over 6 seconds and 4 hits. The only downside to this is you'll be dealing 35% to 175% total ability damage to yourself over 6 seconds and 3 hits. This is a channeled attack, and Smoke Tendrils is unlocked by the Codex Ultimatus, which you require from the Dig Site quest. Like most threshold abilities, it will cost 50% adrenaline to activate this ability and comes at a cost of 15% adrenaline. Smoke Tendrils is a high priority threshold ability for me, only because if you have the Fractured Staff of Armadil, you're going to want to utilize Smoke Tendrils first to be able to hit those guaranteed crit chances. So if you don't have a Fractured Staff of Armadil, then Smoke Tendrils will be more of a mid-tier threshold ability. However, if you do, it's definitely a high priority, and it's actually the threshold that you're going to want to use first when you're going through a Armadil staff rotation. For our next threshold ability, we have Asphyxiate, Reach Out with Magical Force, and Choke the target. And when you're choking these boys out, you're going to be dealing 150% to 752% total ability damage over the span of 4.2 seconds and 4 hits. This is a channeled attack, and on top of everything, you will stun your target for 3.6 seconds. Like most threshold abilities, the adrenaline cost to activate this is 50% and will come at a cost of 15% adrenaline. Asphyxiate is a high priority threshold ability due to the large amount of damage output that you do in 4 seconds, and you also stun the target for about 4 seconds as well. So definitely one of the first threshold abilities that you're going to want to use in a rotation. For our last threshold ability, we have Wild Magic. Fire an unpredictable double magic attack at the target. And when you hit them with this double up, you're going to be hitting them for 50% to 165% ability damage for your first hit. And then on your second hit, you're going to hit them for 50% to 215% ability damage. Like most threshold abilities, it will cost 50% adrenaline to activate this ability and will come at a cost of 15% adrenaline. Wild Magic is definitely a high priority threshold ability, and it's actually the one that I use first when it comes to my DPS rotations due to the fact that you get 2 powerful hits off in a quick succession. Now that we've covered all the threshold abilities and all the basic abilities, let's talk about ultimate abilities. What are ultimate abilities? Well, ultimates require 100% adrenaline, and when you activate them, they will drain all your adrenaline. They either deal a large amount of damage or provide a very powerful effect. Down below, I have 4 of the ultimate abilities that are tied to the magic combat style, and like what we did for basics and thresholds, let's do a deeper dive into each one of these specifically and see what they do, how they work, and how you should prioritize them. For our first ultimate ability, we have Metamorphosis, transform into an element based on your most recent cast spell. Spell consumes no runes when cast, and you will be able to increase your magic damage by 62%. However, in a PvP situation, it will be 31%, and Metamorphosis will last you 15 seconds. Like all ultimate abilities, this will cost 100% adrenaline and will leave you with 0 adrenaline on the bar. Metamorphosis is a low priority ultimate ability for me, mainly because it only lasts 15 seconds and doesn't have a significant increase to your damage output. Definitely wouldn't recommend wasting 100% adrenaline on this ultimate. For our next ultimate ability, we have Omnipower, bombard the target with each of the 4 elements. Now, when you hit them with your avatar powers, you'll be doing 200% to 400% ability damage. Like all ultimate abilities, the adrenaline cost is 100% adrenaline, and it will leave you with 0% adrenaline on the bar. Omnipower is a mid-priority ultimate ability for me, mainly because of the new Zuck capes that have come out. It saves a lot of adrenaline when activating Omnipower. So it'd be more ideal to activate one of the ultimates that we're going to touch on here and then work Omnipower into your rotation due to the fact that you can do that with the new Zuck capes. For our next ultimate ability, we have Tsunami, summon forth a destructive wall of water. And when you activate your Aquaman powers, you're going to be dealing 200% to 300% ability damage. And not only are you going to damage your primary target, but the first 9 targets in a wave in front of you. And so this is an area of effect ability, and critical strikes generate 10% extra adrenaline for 30 seconds. Like all ultimate abilities, this will cost 100% adrenaline and will leave you with 0% adrenaline. Tsunami is a high priority ultimate ability due to the fact that Insight Fear on the Ancient Spellbook allows you to activate Tsunami at a cheaper cost than 100% adrenaline. You typically want to use Tsunami before using the next ultimate that we're going to touch on to increase your adrenaline gain and allow you to do more damage. For our final ultimate ability, we have Sunshine. Summon a sunbeam to shine over your location. While in the beam, magic damage is increased by 50%. And hey, if your target is within that beam, you'll deal 10% to 20% ability damage every 1.8 seconds. And Sunshine lasts 30 seconds, so twice as long as Metamorphosis. Sunshine is unlocked by the World Awakes quest, which, let me tell you guys now, is a super fun quest and you get a lot of unlocks from it. So if you haven't done it yet, I'd get your quest grind ready to go and get World Awakes complete. Like all ultimate abilities, it will cost 100% adrenaline to activate this ability and will leave you with no adrenaline. Sunshine is a high priority ultimate ability for me and is honestly the ultimate ability that you're going to use 99.9% of the time, and it's going to be the start of your DPS rotation. And if you guys have any questions about ultimates or the thresholds or even the basics, make sure you comment down below any questions. I respond to all the comments. Now that we have covered all the ultimate, the thresholds, and the basic abilities, I didn't want to leave you guys high and dry, so what I've done is kind of pulled some action bars from the wiki. If you guys don't know, the wiki is an incredible source, but I have it for dual wield and two-handed weapons. Basically what I did is these action bars are based off of the abilities that you have unlocked. So the top bar is if you don't have any unlocks at all, you can go ahead and put that bar together and put it on Revo. Now these bars aren't going to be doing optimal DPS because it's not explaining how you should rotate through these abilities. However, it will give you a base start, so if you have no action bar at all, you can put it together and start killing things at a mildly decent pace. The second action bar is if you have Sunshine unlocked. The third action bar is if you have Sunshine and Corruption Blast. And the final action bar at the bottom there is if you have Sunshine, Greater Concentrated Blast, and Corruption Blast unlocked. Now that bottom bar is going to be better than all of the previous bars due to the unlocks that you have. But again, it's not going to be optimal DPS because it's not going to explain how you should rotate through these abilities. Now switching over to the action bars for your two-handed weapons. Again, with that first action bar being if you have no unlocks at all, the second action bar if you have Sunshine unlocked, and the bottom action bar if you have Sunshine and Corruption Blast. And again, that bottom bar is going to be the best out of the three action bars, but it's not going to be optimal DPS. It's just going to give you a baseline of if you put on Revo, how you can activate this, but it's not going to explain how you should rotate through these abilities. But I believe that's going to leave us at the end of the video, guys. But that is it for the video, everyone. If you made it this far, wow, you're a real one. Consider subscribing and leave a like on the video. I really hope you guys found these ultimate ability breakdown guides that I've put out over the last week super helpful. I really just want to help everyone understand what the abilities are for each combat style and how you would utilize them, and specifically how you'd prioritize them when it comes to doing DPS and PvM. I will be coming out with a DPS rotation guide here within the next week. Now that you guys understand what all the abilities in each combat style does and how you would prioritize them, now I can actually show you guys kind of how you would build your own rotation given the circumstances and how you would utilize these abilities. And again, I appreciate every single one of you. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.